I'm Bruce Garriock of Post Media here with Jim Bagnall and Kelly Egan from the Ottawa Citizen and Ottawa Sun. And some news today that the LeBreton Flats deal has fallen apart. The NCC has announced that the parties from Rendezvous LeBreton, Eugene Melnick and John Ruddy, have not been able to reach an agreement and mediation, and that means the National Capital Commission guys will have to go forward with next steps. To be honest, to me, Jim, this news is not a surprise. When you have partners suing each other for hundreds of millions of dollars, and in one case $1 billion, it was hard to believe that there could be an agreement here.
Well, normally when companies go into mediation or in business, it's a matter of 1 or 2 days at the most. The fact that this took weeks just suggested how much difficulty there was in getting these people on the same page at all. There's a lot of history here, obviously, but Winkler, the mediator, gave it his best shot, and they took it right up almost to the end. But the essential differences were over money and a lack of trust.
You know, and before I get to Kelly, where do you think where do you think it went wrong?
Well, in a project like this, you got 20 years. It's a $4 billion project. You got hundreds of millions of dollars of potential profits. So you would think there would be plenty of room there to reach an agreement. But the risks were spread a little unfavorably in terms of Eugene Melnick, because he was responsible for the arena, which was to go in the next first 2 or 3 years of the project. So he was responsible for upfront money. And as you know, his financial situation is not as good as it once was. So he was feeling the pressure. And at the same time, he was looking at the development of condos in Ottawa generally. The condos and retail establishments were supposed to pay for the arena, essentially, in this project. And there was an awful lot of development around the area and close to the area that was making him feel uncomfortable that the economics didn't work. And so that's where the two clashed, and they never found an agreement over the sharing of the profits, basically.
Kelly, taking all that into account, I think that the next question that everybody sitting out there is thinking, well, probably first your reaction, but then my next question to that would be, well, where does this go from here?
Well, good question. I mean, I think the NCC really has probably two main options at this point. One is just blow the whole thing up. Pretend the last 5 years didn't happen. That's what I'm trying to do. And start over with a new kind of proposal. An NHL arena was not always in the cards for LeBreton, so they could just start again. The other thing, which possibly is more likely, is they will try and salvage some of the work that has been done by the Ruddy Bird Melnick Group to see if there's enough spade work there that we can extract something out of there, go forward with a plan that may or may not have an arena, may have an arena as a placeholder, work around the problems with Mr. Melnick right now, and see if we can push this rock up the hill.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting question. The central question is, do we need an NHL arena in LeBreton? And once you answer that question either way, I think then you can more sensibly start or restart the process of bidding. Because if you just throw it open again, then you're left with the same principal players or maybe 1 or 2 others. But you have to determine, is this going to be the centerpiece of the LeBreton Flats area? If not, it makes it a whole lot simpler in terms of what you ask for.
I just think, though, that you have to have some kind of theater or some kind of main centerpiece to attract people to go to the area. You know, people don't want to go down there, Kelly, to see a bunch of condos. Like, condos aren't very nice to look at unless you live in them. I think that there has to be some sort. I still think that without a National Hockey League arena, without a centerpiece there, I don't know what you're building. Look at Lansdowne. I mean, Lansdowne is very vibrant 10 nights a year. But what's it like on a Monday night in February? Well, I can tell you, it's pretty quiet.
Well, it has a stadium.
Yeah, but at least a stadium, a hockey arena, has 41 guaranteed dates, plus concerts, plus things like that. I don't know. I still think you still need some kind of draw.
I agree with you, and I don't think most of the city would quarrel with the idea that an NHL arena at LeBreton Flats is a good idea. I think we're behind that. But I think what's pretty plain right now is that Eugene Melnyk, John Ruddy, Graham Bird are not going to be the parties together that bring this to fruition. And the thing Mr. Melnyk has to worry about in this town is I think he's running out of goodwill. I mean, our team now, do you talk about in the dumpster that he was talking about before the season started? I mean, I think we're at an all-time low since I've been following the team. He's running out of friends in this town. Lawsuits and counter lawsuits over this business proposal. I mean, I have a hard time believing that he's going to be the savior, the guy who's going to give us that NHL rink at LeBreton.
What the question off that is, they brought in the Devcore Group, specifically Desmarais, for part of the mediation process. People have talked about the NCC, simply turning to Devcore. Do you see that as having the slightest possibility?
Well, it all depends on how they restart this process. If it's wide open, then the individual members of Devcore are quite free to make their own arrangements. I mean, there are a number of parties within Devcore who are very interested in helping to build an arena or to buy the team from Eugene. An offer was made last year through a number of parties and Eugene turned them down. But my question to him would be, okay, now that your team is in last place, and you're losing thousands of spectators each game, it seems. What's the value of the team now? Because it seems to be diminishing. So I mean, he has to be careful about that. But I think the interest in acquiring the team is still there.
You know, the other thing is, Kelly, if they remain in Canada, which it looks like they're going to do, and he's certainly over the last couple of years mused about staying in Canada. My guess would be, do you think they'll need upgrades to the Canadian Tire Centre there as well?
Well, they did some, I think, over the last season, Bruce. I mean, I think the rink is actually in reasonable shape. And I think people have gotten over the fact that you have to drive some distance to get there and the parking and everything else. I mean, I think that part, we can live with that. The thing with LeBreton is that downtown arena, you need some momentum to get this thing going, and it needs a champion. And I'm not sure with the state of the team right now that, you know, the city's just feeling all that positive about, I mean, what's to talk about a rink? Our team is falling apart. You know, like it's like your family's falling apart and you're talking about building a new house. I don't want a new house. All we're doing is fighting and we're kicking out our favorite players. I mean, so I don't know. I'm very frustrated with the whole thing.
The last question for me is, and I'd like both of you to answer this because you both follow this part of the process a whole lot closer than I do. Where does the NCC go from here? It's easy for them to say that, well, you know, I think the last guy at the door there, Chris Manson, who couldn't get this deal done, said that, don't worry, we've got a process in place to keep going. Well, they've been working on this for 50 years, and I don't think, pardon me, but I don't think this looks very good on the National Capital Commission either.
Well, first of all, they may have been working on it for 50 years, but they've only been serious about it for the last 4 or 5. So we'll give them that. But I think bigger picture, Ottawa over the next 20 years, which is the length of this project, is going to add another 500, 600,000 people. Where are you going to put them? Here's a good place to put them, right? So you need a development here. And I think the NCC has to answer, first of all, the question, do we want an NHL arena in here? Because it seems like Melnyk is extremely difficult to get a deal with at any level. That may be an unfair perception, but it's certainly a very strongly held one by most of the major players in the development community.
And you know, something else that the mayor pointed out today correctly is that we now have a new light rail train system that is about to open in 2019. We have 2 stations feeding LeBreton Flats, and now it's a field. So this is an important part of city building that we're going through. We have to do something with that land, and we have to do it relatively soon. We just can't leave that vacant.
And the NCC's made it quite clear they intend to develop it. But again, that question, does it need an NHL arena to provide that catalyst?
Well, we'll see what happens here. There's a lot of twists and turns in this story, I'm sure, before it's over with. For Post Media in Ottawa, I'm Bruce Garriock with Jim Bagnall and Kelly Egan.